We've heard lots of wonderful stories, and there are links between them about being clear about who we are, knowing who we are, recognizing that things change as we age and we become more experienced, being very creative in terms of how we try to take control of situations, realizing that we can achieve as women, that we can achieve as Black women, that we have hidden depths and hidden strengths. And it's about finding those and really connecting with them and getting support from lots of people around us. Right. That has given you a few extra seconds to think about those amazing questions, which I know you have to ask. So ask away. Who's going to be the first person?
Who was your role model growing up and why? I know this has been said, but perhaps you can be more specific now. Who was your role model growing up and why?
I think Sandra's got her hand up first. Go on, Sandra, you can take it first, as you seem like you've got someone clearly in mind.
I've already mentioned her, my mother. My mother, as I said, came here. She continued to go to school part-time. There were times when she was working 3 jobs in order to keep food on the table, house over our heads, and she was always ambitious, always thinking that she could do more if she would educate herself. And that she's, I mean, you know, 3 years ago she died, and at 78, she was still running her own store and still doing things internationally as well. So my mother.
Definitely no questions about it. My mother is still a powerhouse, although she's left us, was a powerhouse, but still is, because she just never allowed us to think that there was any other any other path but for what we choose to think. Because wherever we were with her, we were outsiders, even back home, because we were really never in one environment that fitted us. But there was never, so when you are, and even when you came home and you said anything that in any way made you start thinking negative, she'll say, well, she'll find a way of saying that's their problem, not you. You are not the problem. And somehow that stuck, and you then don't see the obstacles really. You can, it clarifies the path for you. You see the doors when, you see the cracks. If the door is up or closed, you see the cracks in every possibility out there. And so, yes, absolutely. And my mother also defied everything that one could be defined as. She was completely illiterate, never read, she started her life as an orphan, arranged marriage very early, 5 children, 4 boys, 1 daughter, widowed really early. So her story really, if you're looking at her as she could be a victim, but she never was. And she always told a hero story. So even whenever you had a problem, she'd say, this is really her answer. She'd say, in the moment, she'll say to you, we will look back and laugh at this one day. And that was her thing. We will look back and we will laugh at this. And so as much as she's gone, she passed away a couple of years ago, she's there. So yes, my mother.
Thank you. Any other contributions?
And lots of other mothers as well.
I was going to say there's a clear theme emerging here.
Yes.
And it's very interesting. This Sunday is Mothering Sunday, Mother's Day, however you want to term it, when there will be a very focused celebration on mothers. So it's great that we're thinking about them today. Shelley.
Good evening, everybody. Mine isn't my mother, but she is my mother. But, that's a whole different story. The woman who inspired me most is a lady, I'm going to name her. Her name is Ivonne Francis. She was the sister on the ward where I worked. And she interviewed me for my job, which changed my life and changed my children's life. And she asked me what it was that I wanted to do. And I said I was always interested in knowing what went on in the background, what made the wards tick, what made the NHS run. And she made it her focus to take me along to the management meetings where all the senior nurses were, so that I could see what was going on. We were the only Black women there, and she took me. We were the only Black women there. And when I went to apply for a job as a deputy sister, I didn't have faith in myself that I could do the job. And I asked her if she thought that I could do the job. And she said, of course you can. She said, you can do anything that you want. And every time I'm in a position where I have to speak, or whether I'm going to stand in front of an audience or hold my own, I think about what Ivonne would do, how she would speak, how she would present herself. And I've always based myself on that. Every success I've had, I always message her and say to her, this is because of you. So that's somebody who I admire.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing that. And we do know Ivonne. She's done a session with us and was very generous with her time and her thoughts. So that's fantastic. And just picking out what you said, this business of us not believing in ourselves and other people quite often seeing all of those hidden depths that I was talking about and actually saying to you, you can do this. And we can be our own worst enemies sometimes by not believing that. So it's always useful to be surrounded by people who will see that and will say to you, yes, you have to do it. Okay, Tara's next, and then Claudia and Sugar.
Yeah, I'm going for a completely different one because mine isn't even female, my inspiration, because I would pick my granddad. My granddad brought up 5 girls. She's my wonderful aunties that are all absolutely feisty, brilliant women that obviously brought me up as well, and I wouldn't be where I am today. But it was really from his guidance of telling us all that to be as confident as we possibly could and not doubting ourselves as women and making sure that we could do anything we put our minds to. He was the one that brought us as the grandchildren all our books from Trinidad to make sure that we weren't just having Peter and Jane, and we saw he was the one that really enforced us as, because we are a pretty female-led family. I have like 24 cousins and 20 of us are women, and there's like 5 boys. So he really did do a great job in enforcing us to be a real lot of ballsy women with just confidence coming out from left, right and centre. And that I do put down to him pushing us and making sure that we could do anything any man could do, and know that anything they can do, we can do better.
Thanks, Tara. And we'll now move on to Claudia and then Sugar.
Look, all I will say is that, I mean, firstly, I'm simply inspired this evening by everything that everyone is saying. So thank you for what you've said, because it is truly inspirational. But of course, my mother, like others, presents an inspiration to me, not just because she was part of the Windrush generation that tackled the injustices and forged a way so that I and generations that follow could move forward. But also my mother was deaf, and yet I could read and write before I even started school. And it was a good job that I could read and write before I started school, because my school offered me nothing, absolutely nothing. I went to the most racist school possible in Leicester, at least that's what I thought at the time. My school days were hampered by the abuse and racism that I suffered. And that meant that, snowballs often greeted me in the winter, but not ordinary snowballs covered in stone on the way to school. Because my mother was a dressmaker, she was so talented, actually. She made our school clothes, but often my peers at school didn't appreciate the garments that my mother made me wear, which often were long dresses. And so I was bullied, of course, because of that. And so before I even arrived at school, I would be beaten, literally, by school bullies, and my clothes ripped before I got there. So so I spent a lot of my time, because of that, doing every after school activity possible. And that's what made me resilient, the person that I am today. My mother taught me to read and write, but she didn't teach me about African history. Sadly, she taught me, she gave, I had the Ladybird books, but I could read and write. And so I got my education around African history from the challenges that presented themselves in Leicester at the time, from the 81 uprisings, the 85 uprisings, to all the awareness that I was able to gain from those kinds of social networks that I engaged with, and found my roots and identity, and was never going to be again that person in the school class that every time the lessons would talk about Tarzan and apes and the negative effects and impact of African people, that I was never going to hide my face in shame because I was so embarrassed to be Black. It's a deep and bad education that we were taught, all of us, and it took a lot of unlearning to get to where I am today. However, the same education was taught to all of my peers, and I doubt they've done a 10th, even a 5th or an 8th of the unlearning that I've done. So that's why I fight and campaign hard for the truthful education about Africa, the Caribbean, and Asia to be taught in our schools, because colonialism and imperialism was so abusive. My mother came through all of that and survived. She made garments without patterns. My home, our home, was the place that people came. If you wanted a garment making for that weekend or that night, my mother made them. She did the hairs, everybody's hair as well. My home was the place where people came for a garment or a hairdressing with the iron combs and all of that. And I'm so proud, therefore, what my mother achieved. It made me go on to appreciate women like Sojourner Truth, who said, "Ain't I a woman?" and also appreciate Diane Abbott, who inspired me to want to go into politics.
Great. Thank you very much, Claudia. Thank you. So next we have Sugar and then Uzo.
Yes, just like I said, a serious panel where we come to women or girls, or stick to women. I always find it interesting that some of my men friends who I've worked with, etc. I'm saying I find it easier to work with women. I'm not saying that because it's a panel. It's something I always notice, because when I have something deeply constructive, educational in myself, I find it easier to have a word with a young lady or a young woman, because my mom passed away when I was only 17 anyway. So I always find it easier with my sister, elder sister, and the wife, and ladies around me. I find it easier to have respect for women. But I think the difficulty we have, some of us as men, we find it difficult to respect a woman because she might be more highly educated than us, or she might be working for a higher salary than us. I find that disturbing for some men. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm very sorry that Diane Abbott is not on this evening. However, this question will go direct to Claudia. Now, Claudia, you mentioned in your presentation of reference to the girls, that the way they've been treated by the Met Police. Now, what I would like to see in the House, direct to you, that these things should be raised again in the House to challenge not just the Met, but all the different forces up and down the country.
I mean, I'll respond briefly, but obviously it's an important point that Sugar raises, because it goes to the heart, really, of us as Black women and girls and our treatment, because despite 400 years, really, of bondage, it shows that, you know, that we often continue to be treated in a cruel, murderous and dangerous way. And the humiliation that young child felt is just but the tip of the iceberg. It highlighted something that we know now that is going on across London and indeed across the UK, the notion of strip search and the way that Black girls in particular are treated. And it was abhorrent the way that this child was treated. And you're right, Sugar, this needs more debate in the House. But we're talking about a system that is deep rooted in terms of not even seeing Black girls, Black women, Black people as even human. That is what we're talking about. And that system runs right through from school to the streets in terms of confrontation with the police, to the court system, and the way in fact that when you think about the numbers of judges, less than 1% of our judiciary is Black. So we're talking about a system that needs deep change, and of course it needs more debate in Parliament if we can get some airtime. The fact that it happened in Diane's constituency, she was the right person to speak out about it. It's her constituency, but the reality is 60% of strip searches in Hackney were of Black kids, Black young women, Black people, but there were a huge number of strip searches going on across the whole country, 170,000 across the UK. Somebody needs to ask Leicestershire for the breakdown in terms of the figures and the ethnicity of those who are strip searched, because the numbers will be high.
Thank you. As Susan said,
Yeah.
I was going to say, as Susan said, I think this is
Pick
definitely
it up, Amanda.
This is definitely a topic that we cannot give justice to in the time that we have. Uzo, I believe you got your hand up. Is there some more questions for our panelists?
Sorry, I'm actually acting as a participant here very quickly to also say who my role model is. And because she's actually here among us today, and that's also following very much the trend of everybody else, my mother, who is here as Andy J. I'm actually saying that's my mum, and my mum is my role model. And she has worked so hard for the rest of us and put us all 6 children she brought up almost single-handedly, and all through education, both secondary and higher education. And mum, thumbs up.
Oh,
Thank you, everybody. I will move on with the rest of the questions. There is one which says, describe what a 21st century Black woman is. This is to our speakers. What would be your ideal 21st century Black woman? And following on to that, what does transformation look like?
I think for me, it's, you know, we have turned into our own powerhouses. The strength and ability that we show as Black women at the moment shines through. And we are really a powerful force to be reckoned with at the moment.
Sandra, do you want to take that next?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Tara, sorry. But I think that the 21st century Black woman is in a way no different from our foremothers. If we look at the journeys that they came from, whether, straight from Africa to the Caribbean or here, these are individuals, some, especially if we look at Africans, stolen away from their home, but they still did the same things that we as women are doing today. We are holding the family together. We are giving, many of the panelists have already spoken about, the messages our mothers gave us about who we are, and our fathers in some, our grandfathers in some respect, about who we are as Black people. And women, if you look at, all of the science and the research, puts Black women at the center of the culture, the Black culture. We deliver the messages, the religion, the ideology, the mindset. So we are still that powerhouse. I agree 100%. We have, in some respects, maybe a little bit more access to information, a little bit more access to share, to hear, and to propagate our views. So the question is, are we truly aware of the power we are and that we have? And how are we using that? But women, Black women, will always be powerful. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we scare the bejeebies out of people, okay? Because when we know who we are forced to reckon with. And when we unite, then I think we are unstoppable. And that's why there is so much effort going into trying to stop us realizing who the hell we are. We are power, we are strength, and we are the heart of today's generation and tomorrow's.
Doctor, did you want to take that one too?
I think yes, powerhouse, yes. Ideal 21st century, I would say being more aware of the power we hold, actually owning the power. And I mean, in very simplistic terms, we hold the future in the hands, our future. We are in control of what our children see. We're in control of what education they get. We're in control of what access they have, because of, as I said, our mothers have got us, and our parents and our aunties and our uncles and our brothers and everybody has got us here. But we have a better position. We're almost 15 steps above that. So how do we then lift the next generation up? How do we then lift each other, reach sideways, reach upwards, reach downwards? We need to own that power and carry on. So carry the baton and carry it faster and wider and spread it more, but own it.
Claudia, I'm going to take, did you have something to add on that question?
The only thing I would say, what does a 21st century woman look like? I echo the sentiments that our struggles are the same struggles actually of our foremothers and forefathers. Racism has not ended. The reality is sexism has not ended. The way that we are treated as Black women has not actually materially changed. We can't move forward without a movement, without unity, and without solidarity. We're not an island that we can just operate by ourselves. When sisters need our support and solidarity, a 21st century woman would reach out and offer that clear. We are not, the kind of, the notion that we can survive by being the sole influencer in this digital age, that is not real. Our reality and our solidarity is in the love that we share for each other, is in the joining up that we make of each other and with each other. It's that friendship. It's that non-biological family that we connect with. It matters not. that we have blood ties or not. We come from a community where, you know, there's a saying in Africa that says it takes a village to raise a child. That saying is as true today as it ever was. And therefore, the 21st century woman continues with that mission. It takes a village to raise a child. We are part of that. And we are not here to mitigate an unjust system, as I've said. We're here to transform it and to change it so that it lasts and is sustained for the better.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Morton had her hand up. Mrs. Morton?
Just want to say that the future looks a lot better than a few years ago, with so many Black ladies that I can see and hear about. Because I was in this country 64 years in August, and we didn't even have a telephone at that stage, and it took a lot out of us, myself and people of my age, to combat all the racism that was here then. It took me some time to get in the libraries and borrow all the little sample books, and then had a burning session. And it was just a couple of men that I had with me, because at that time, women had no grandparents or no parents to fall back on, as a lot of you have now. So we had to do things ourselves. Some of it maybe was not very nice, but we had to. So I went to all the libraries I could then, got all the laboratory books, borrowed them, and I guess if I took them back now, it will cost me a fortune. But they were all burnt. I had a good friend named Belinda. I don't know if any of you remember him. Maybe many of you won't, because of the age, who helped me with that sort of thing, going around and even late at night burning the books. What I'm going to say is, I hope that many of you will remember how your parents fought and how your parents strive to get you where you are today. It wasn't easy, because even when some of the stories I've heard tonight, even when I came here and we had to go to a place called the Labor Exchange then, which I'm sure you all have never even heard the word, that was what it was called, to register that we're here, take our passports and everything, and fill the form out. And when you're given these forms, you sit at a table and you have to fill these forms out and tell them all about you. And when I took it back to the desk, the lady said to me, "Where did you learn English? And how did you manage to write this English?" And she ripped my paper up and asked me to write it all again in front of her. And her face went a different color. But we have suffered. Your parents, like me, have suffered. We have worked hard, 2 and 3 jobs, and I'm hoping that with your commitment tonight, my great-grandchildren won't have to suffer as much as we did, because I'm holding you all to what you've said, to carry on what you're doing, because I know we will meet obstacles. There's no doubt about that. And for you, for the people that came from the Caribbean, because I'm a Caribbean fanatic, I acknowledge all the other islands, all the other continents. I acknowledge them, and I'm blessed to have them because you learn from each other. But don't forget, it's not even 200 years since emancipation in the British Caribbean islands. And look back and see, we have come a long way, but there's still a lot to be done. Carry on the good work. I must say that as I get older, I hope I can sleep better, knowing that you will carry on being Black and looking forward for a better future. Because without you, the you must have people who can speak out. And don't forget, speak out, speak up, and let your voice be heard. And my great grandmother told me once, when she was making me go up a coconut tree to get some coconut, there is no such word as can't. Get up there. And I've never forgotten what she said to me. So I'm depending on you to make life a bit easier for my great-grandchildren. Okay?
Thank you so much for that, Mrs. Morton. I mean, as has been said as well tonight, as many of the speakers have said, we're standing on the shoulders of people like yourselves. So where we are today, you have all made us where we are today. And thank you so much for that. I think very quickly, please, Carol, if you could give us your view.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can I say what a lovely evening. Thank you very much, African Heritage Alliance. Thank you. This is an absolute pleasure, even on a Friday evening when we should be relaxing with our feet up. But this has been splendid. Thank you. I have a question. I have a question to ask the panel, as well as perhaps the audience. We know we stand on the shoulders of some great people who've made some wonderful sacrifices. And we know that we need to continue going forward. As parents, as grandparents, I'm sure I will be one day. Not that I'm putting my daughter under any pressure, believe you, I'm not. But should we not enable and empower them when they go to school to do your best, reach your highest, love what you're doing, pick up those books? But do we empower and enable them by telling them you have to work harder than your white counterparts? What do we do to our children when we're sending them into that environment? Isn't there another way we could do it? Do we have to say, you've got to work harder? They're 7, 8, 9, 11, 13. They're vulnerable. They rely on us to beat the teachers, to challenge the system, to challenge the police. But do we need to, and do we, in fact, empower them by saying, you have to work 100 times, 10 times harder than your white counterpart?
That's a really interesting question, and something that I've kind of wrestled with over, I think over the lockdown period. It was really quite clear to me how differently people that were brought up by white parents, how different their outlooks were on things, even if they were mixed raced, and how differently they kind of navigated the world. And I did kind of come to those, because I was always told, you've got to be better than everybody else. You've got to work harder. You've got to do this. And although I think I needed that, it was an empowerment that I had to give to myself and I had to give to my children. I observed a couple of my mixed race friends that had white parents and how they navigate the world through having this kind of armor where they just think that it's their rights, it's their right to have what white people have. They don't understand, that we and that we have to do more and we have to do better. And I was kind of, I'm interested buy that, because although I have the belief that we do have to do better to create this world for us, to kind of move forward, and there is a glass ceiling for us that we have to be aware of, it was quite interesting watching those people that have been brought up with white parents, that they had kind of, it's a different level of confidence in what they can do and how they can navigate through the world, which I found very interesting. So I don't know if I've answered that. I probably haven't, because I don't think I've come to
it perhaps isn't, it's not a clear-cut question.
It's not,
answer,
no.
is it? It's
So
how
can
you
I-
feel. I refused to say that to my daughter. I was never going to have her believe that she had to work harder than a white counterpart. I just couldn't do it. And it was my grandmother who said, "What you're talking about? You're all good. My children are good. They're bright. They're able." So there was a different confidence that my daughter Sojourner took into school. She ended up with a first, 12 GCSEs, 4 A-levels. She spent a year at Berkeley because there was a different sort. She had a self-belief, and it wasn't about comparing herself. And thank goodness it wasn't, because a lot of the kids that she knew at school were off an estate. So it would have done her no good to make those comparisons. Believe in yourself. Know thyself. Know that you are brilliant. Know that you can achieve anything. You don't have to be compared, not to white people whose parents call us names. That's crazy, I think.
Yeah, I think what you're saying actually, son, Carol, sorry, leads into one of the questions on the chat, which says, what strategies do you employ to navigate the challenges you face as a Black woman? What are your strategies, speakers?
I agree.
And the audience.
I do agree with you to a certain extent, and I genuinely do, because of what I've just said. But I do think that when we go out into the wider world, you do have to be better. You know, in everything.
We can be better by simply being empowered, by simply having self-belief, by knowing that we are supported by our loved ones at home. They will be tested in exams and tests on a Friday. There was always the spelling test. But why do we have to use the language? You've got to do better than that white boy or white girl.
Very good point. Let's hear the other speakers. What do other speakers think of on this point? Yes, Dr. Conjo.
I think I come back to that, define who you are, and just because you still are the main narrative for your child. Because as much as ideally, wherever they leave home and they go out and meet the world, wherever this world is, that you have to be sure, you have to be quite clear that you influenced what they think and how they think of themselves. There's definitely something they have to combat out there. I'll give you an example. I have a very, very bright daughter. Her problem can be the opposite. So she would be told, we'd go into a tutorial with a tutor, and she'd have feedback, which was something like, well, not sure you get, say, 201, which is the minimum you need. If we're lucky. And we then walk to the car, and I have to undo that. How do you undo that? And how do you, so you, as I said, you don't burden them with all of our baggage. Also be careful you're not naive to think that the world is changed enough for them to just go in and walk and be, as you said, equal, because that unfortunately perhaps may not be the reality wherever that world is. So it's a way, I come back to that thing. We need to teach our next generation, or carry on this theme of define who you are. Don't let anyone tell you who you are, and stay true to that, whatever that takes. Whatever blocks are put in your way, find a way of finding that crack and not seeing the blocks, or actually being able to, because that's what our forefathers and foremothers and foresisters did. It's not gone yet.
Yeah, just quickly, pretty much, I said this at the beginning, know who you are, decide who you are. And I think the thing that we need to do more about is to sit down with our children and help them to understand, how do you decide who you are? How do you decide who you want to be? We don't have time enough, but at 11 years old, I asked myself that question. Who do I want to be? I want to be someone that when I look in the mirror, I like that person. I'm proud of that person. I believe in that person. And I didn't realize it at the time, but one of the things that my mom used to do, I was the smallest, and she would still say, Sandy, climb that tree. Sandy, go and deal with whatever the case may be. And what she was doing there was helping me to have confidence in my own ability. So when I am out there in the world and people may reject me, my ideas, opportunities they don't offer me, it does not impact on my self-belief and my confidence, because I know who I am and I know who I want to be, and I know the difference I can and I want to make in this world. And if we're going to give our children anything to go out in the world with, that is what we need to empower them with.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to very quickly add that there are lots of more questions on the chat, but unfortunately, due to time, we're not able to go through all of them. But I would like us all to think about this particular question, which says, what would the world look like if women were in control? I leave that as a thought for all of us. Okay.
Awesome.
And to in control.
Claudia, did you have a final word you wanted to add to the last question?
Individual change is not going to cut it. We need system change. We need to change the school system so that it recognizes everyone. We shouldn't have to be fighting for recognition or the notion of we have to work twice as hard or 3 times as hard as the next our peers. We should have a system that treats everybody fairly and equally. That's what we're doing in terms of what we're trying to do in Parliament with the change that we're seeing there. The first time that we've seen the significant number of Black women in Parliament is the 2019 intake. And yet it's still a fraction of what society is made up of. Our systems, especially here in Leicester, do not reflect our population makeup. We have to be prepared to challenge the system and to change it so that our schools reflect the pupils that attend it. And therefore, everyone should benefit. All of us should benefit. And if our goal isn't to change the system, rather than just to empower individuals, empowering individuals is fine. But unless we change the system, it's an individualistic approach, not a collective approach. Our goal must be a collective approach.
Thank you. I am at that point. I think I'll just hand over to announcements for what's coming next, and we'll have a few words to close. But thank you for that. Thank you so much for our contributions. Thank you for your your participation and all your active questions. We're just going to share a few of the upcoming activities and events that are happening within the African Heritage Alliance, because as you say, Claudia, we're all about action, about making change, and that change is changing the system, because we recognise as a collective group within the AHA that actually it's about the power of the collective. And I think that's definitely a theme that's come through tonight. Along with the theme, I think that I've heard loud and clear, at least, is this one about identity and personal vision. Because I think I do understand the collective, but we have to have this sense of identity. We have to hold a vision so that we can collectively come together and make the changes that need to happen. So I'm going to, without any further ado, because I'm conscious of time, I'm going to just hand over to the team to give us our updates and announcements, and then we will take things from there. So first and foremost, George, I think you're in the hot seat to just give us a quick announcement about the African Caribbean Centre, which is an area where we are taking action.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And just before I go into that, I'd just like to offer my condolences to Linda Herbert's family. And just to make the point that I knew Linda Herbert way back in the 70s. And when I was struggling to find who I was, Linda Herbert was the person I went to. And I might also add that she was by way of my first mentor, because she was this woman who was larger than life and more capable than any man that I'd known at the time. And so I felt very humbled and privileged when I was around her. So again, I offer my condolences to her. Okay, so this African Caribbean Center, this has been with us since 1981, following the riots that took place in the city. And in terms of running the center as a community, we've never had the opportunity to create the African heritage culture, the African heritage way of thinking, the African heritage way of seeing the world in this building for one reason or another. There was a brief period when we thought we did, but that was taken away from us. We now have an opportunity to have this transferred to our community as an asset. And the African Heritage Alliance are working with individuals and organizations within the city, Black organization, to participate in what will be an asset transfer of this building from the council to the community. If you're an organization and you're not aware of the work that's being done, please try and follow the African Heritage Alliance and find out when the next meeting is so that you can come and join us and be a part of the collective body that is working to have this building transferred to us as an asset. So this is about our supplementary school. And I did hear that much of the conversation towards a latter part of this meeting was about how we educate our children, how do we implant confidence in our children, and how do we help them to navigate the world that they will face once they leave the front door and go out either at the age of 5, 10, 15, 20, 50. And the Phoenix Agenda Supplementary School is an enterprise which is aimed at trying to address that as an issue. We deal with the core academic subject, math, science, and English. But in addition to that, we have an enrichment program which enriches the mind of the children beyond just the academic stuff and give them that strength, that insight into who they are and the confidence to believe in themselves. In addition to that, we provide them with individual mentors so they can share their concerns at an early age with someone with far more experience than them and be able to gain the advice and the experience from those individuals. The school meets on Wednesdays, 4:30 until 6:30, and also on Saturdays, 9:30 until 12 o'clock. Tomorrow we have a brilliant exhibition of what we do at the school taking place at the African Caribbean Center. We have our science fair there. It'd be great if many on the calls would come down to the African Caribbean Center and see some of the kids and see some of the stuff that they do at the science fair at the African Caribbean Center tomorrow, 1 o'clock until 4.
Thank you. Thank you. Will you be able to just give us a quick update of the wonderful work you're doing on the food bank, please?
Well, good evening, everyone. It's been a real pleasure listening tonight, I've got to say. So the food bank, we now are actively running a food bank, and it would be wonderful to have everybody's continued support on this. We're in a situation where systems are in place. It's an official charity, has official charity status, and so we hope that the community will be able to access this, and that the African Caribbean Centre, in addition to the African Heritage Alliance, will be official referrers, so that when anyone in the community needs that extra support and hopefully signposting so they can access assistance to become independent, that we're there for that now. So welcome volunteers, wonderful, all this knowledge base here, and hopefully, as we have heard lots of times, our collective support of anyone in need, so that we can see more and more people becoming independent and thriving. Thank you. That's it for now.
Thank you. Really important at this current time with the financial challenges that most people are facing. So thank you for that, Annette. Next, we have a couple of things which I'll just update you on. So as part of the African Heritage Alliance, we have a monthly property meeting where we have experts within our community who are giving advice, guidance, assistance, support on topics specific topics each month that really help people to enter the property ladder, be that through buying property themselves, how to fund properties. And this is done not only for those that have acquired wealth, but also those who may be seeking strategies to get into property development. So we really encourage everyone to spread the word about this. It's still relatively new. I think this is their second or third session now. April will be the third session, and it's on the 21st of April, Thursday. It actually takes place in person at Highfield Ranges. And the topic this time is about buying a property to let. So it's a small fee of £10, but that really just is assisting the team to ensure that they can provide the quality of service that they'd like to. So we encourage everyone to attend. As I say, it is in person. Another activity that the business and wealth creation work stream within the group are pioneering is a session about procurement. And this is how you procure with local authorities in order for us as the Black community to get our share of the procurement pie, so to speak. Because when we were investigating the amount of bids that were won by Black individuals or groups, the statistics were painfully and woefully shameful. So this is one of the strategies that we're put in place in order to increase the expertise and awareness of people within the Black community. So it's on Monday, the 25th of April at 6 till 8. Again, it's an in-person event. This one's taking place at City Hall in Leicester. And we have experts from the procurement team within Leicester City Council, as well as Black organisations that have won bids who are willing to share their expertise, their learnings. I think it's a theme of the night that we said we're better together. Unity is what it's all about. And this is an opportunity for us to share our own knowledge and expertise. So again, even if it's not applicable to you, we really encourage you to spread the word. And all our events are available to view and to book on Eventbrite. If you just look up African Heritage Alliance or AHA, you will find the wealth of our activities. I am now going to hand over to Chisel. Hello, good evening. Looking wonderful, may I add. And she's going to tell us about our next public meeting, which happened the last Friday of every month. And that's Friday, the 29th of April at 7 till 9. And it's about sexual health. And Chisel is from our health and wellbeing work stream, as we have a number of work streams. And this one's going to be bringing us the next meeting. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Just to say, the session this evening was very, very fantastic, listening to all the ladies who were empowering us here today. Well, as the slide of the screen shows, the next public meeting is on the 29th of April, and we'll be talking to you about sexual health. As you can see, the panel of speakers, they're all professional, all very educated. They will be talking to us about sexual health, how to access sexual health services, empowering us with information on where to get sexual health services from, and breaking barriers on the stigma that we as people from African heritage community feel when we're talking about our sexual health. I know that I don't want to be told about what happens on the night, whether by Amanda or Councillor Cole or Dr. Oloto. Therefore, I would log in myself and be a part of it. So don't miss out. Share this information with your children in university and secondary school, because they know about sex, and about sexual health more than we think we give them credit for, and will perhaps benefit from the information on the night. Tell friends and family, and don't wait to be told about what happens tonight. Come, be empowered, learn about your sexual health. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. And I think it's just really left to say thank you to all of our panelists.
Amanda, I wonder if we can just, before we go there, just remind the audience that we are looking for people who want to be a part of what it is that we're doing. So if you like what you're hearing and like what we're doing, then we are looking for people to come and join us. And we also have a YouTube channel where you can catch up on all of our meetings. It's the recent channel, so not all the meetings are there, but we intend to have them up there fairly shortly.
What's left to do now is really just to thank all of our panelists. We really do appreciate you giving up your time. I think we all left, I know, I see the clapping hands there. I do feel like we've all been left not only just inspired, but hopefully with a desire to take action. It definitely was loud and clear to me that the theme of the night for me was all about identity, about resilience, about vision, about holding that even despite the circumstances. From, you know, all the way through our speakers, I think there's a bit of a theme about how you persevere and how you push through in order to succeed. But I think one of the big things that is definitely important for us as women is definitely to see how we can work together. I'm a true believer that we are better together, be that men, women, as women as a community. It's about how we support each other. And even LV coming on tonight to honour her friend Linda is an example about how women have supported each other in order to do the work that they needed to do for our city. So I would just urge you all to think about how do you reach out to your sisters, to your friends, to your girlfriends, to all around you, especially as Mothering Sunday is upon us. And I think we can be mothers to everyone that we meet. They don't have to be our biological children. I think mothering is something we do brilliantly, and we do it excellently as Black women. I think it's in our DNA. So thank you all, ladies, for coming and giving your time. So I always think time is our most precious commodity. And so we appreciate on a Friday evening that you've given up your evening to spend inspiring other women. So yes, thank you all. Thank you everyone who's joined us this evening. As George says, if you want to get involved, we're always keen to bring more people into the fold. And if you want to stay connected with all the things that the African Heritage Alliance is doing, you can find us on not only our YouTube channel, but we're also on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook and all social media platforms, as well as you can find us, we also have a newsletter and you can find us on Eventbrite too. So please stay connected. We'll see you hopefully on Friday, the 29th of April for our next public meeting, which as Chisel's already explained, is all about sexual health. So thank you everyone. Good night and have a great weekend and happy Mother's Day to you all. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Amanda, and everyone else on the call.
Good night. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.